So after tons of delays, The Flash has finally been released, and it's receiving mixed reviews. I've seen a lot of people say it's really bad, and a lot of people say it's really good, and I didn't know which one to believe at first, but after seeing the movie, it's actually pretty good. As far as Rotten Tomatoes goes, it's currently sitting at 67%, which compared to other DC movies is fairly high. The critics have always been harsh on DC movies. Like, just look at these critic scores compared to the audience scores. Maybe it's because they're not as good as the MCU movies, but like still, go easy on them. The DCEU may not be as well built as the MCU, but the movies are still fun. And honestly, aside from Zack Snyder's Justice League, The Flash is the best DCEU movie in my opinion. I'm honestly surprised it took this long for The Flash to get a movie, especially after watching the TV show. I may be wrong on this, but I think this film has been in development for like a long time now, and they were planning on releasing it sooner, but with all the delays and behind the scenes drama, it took them this long to get it out. I'm actually kind of sad that the DCEU is being resetted now, because this film showed us what it would look like if the universe had been well built. The first like 15 to 20 minutes where the Flash and Batman team up to save Gotham were amazing. We finally get to see Ben Affleck's full potential as Batman, and it's great. I'm so disappointed that we never got a solo Ben Affleck movie, because this movie showed how fun it would have been. They've always made Ben Affleck's Batman so dark and grim, which I guess it kind of worked, but this more lighthearted version of him is a lot more fun. The part where the Flash saves the terrible CGI babies from falling was pretty dumb and probably one of the worst parts of the movie though. But that beginning scene was basically the send-off for the original DCEU characters. We got Ben Affleck's Batman, Gal Gadot's Wonder Woman, and a back shot of Henry Cavill's Superman. And I mean, it was an okay send-off. Like, they could have done better, but hey, at least we got them. But after that beginning part, we get into the main story, which is still pretty good. You'd think from all the marketing that'd be mainly about Michael Keaton's Batman or all the other cameos. Now, there are a bunch of cameos in here, but the main focus is The Flash. It's not Michael Keaton's Batman starring The Flash, it's The Flash starring Michael Keaton's Batman. This movie is actually supposed to be adapting the Flashpoint Paradox comic book, which I never read, but I saw the animated movie. And I mean, looking at it as an adaptation of the Flashpoint Paradox, it's kinda disappointing. So if you don't know already, the Flashpoint Paradox has Barry Allen go back in time to try to save his mom, but then he accidentally messes up the universe. And so we get a universe where Thomas Wayne is Batman, and Martha Wayne is the Joker, and the Atlanteans are at war with the Amazonians. And the Flash has to team up with Batman so they can try to stop the Reverse Flash and fix the timeline. The movie has a couple of things in common with the comic book, I guess, like the Flash having to team up with Batman, and Barry losing his powers and having to recreate the disaster that gave him his powers in the first place so he can get them again. And them having to save that world's Superman so they could help them defeat the bad guy. So it's not entirely different from the comic book, I guess. It just would have been a lot cooler if they were more faithful to it. But I get why they decided not to make it a complete adaptation, because it probably would have been really expensive. A lot of DCEU movies have been losing money at the box office recently. And this film is supposed to be resetting the DCEU, so as of right now it's not important to the main story of the new DCEU. I don't know if it's confirmed or not whether or not this film is canon to the new DCEU timeline, but as of right now it doesn't look like it. But yeah, looking at this film not as an adaptation but just a Flash movie, it's still pretty good. Like I mentioned earlier, this film does handle the multiverse. So how does DC's multiverse movie compare to the others? I actually thought they did a good job. They kind of combined time travel and multiverse into one, saying like if you change something in the past, you not only change the future, but also the past. So it does get a little confusing at some parts, but I still think they did a good job at handling it. Plus, they gave us Michael Keaton's Batman, so I'm not complaining. Speaking of Michael Keaton's Batman, let's talk about the cameos. This movie had quite a bit of cameos. They pretty much just used the scene from No Way Home whenever the multiverse starts cracking open. Except they actually used that to show us cameos instead of just their silhouettes. And this just might be me, but the multiverses kind of looked like comic panels, which I don't know if that was intentional or not, but it's a nice touch. So let me see, we got the black and white Superman and Flash, who I think is Wally West, but I could be wrong on that. We also got to see Adam West's Batman for a couple of seconds. We got Christopher Reeve's Superman and Helen Slater's Supergirl. And of course Michael Keaton's Batman and Zod from The Man of Steel. And at the end of the film, we find out that Ben Affleck's Batman has been replaced by George Clooney's Batman. Which, I'm just gonna say it would have been so much more cooler if it was Christian Bale. There probably was a reason they decided not to bring him back, or maybe they just didn't want to bring him back, but I feel like he would have been cooler than George Clooney. But without a doubt, the best cameo in the entire movie was Nicolas Cage's Superman. If you didn't know already, Nicolas Cage was supposed to play a Superman in the live-action movie that ended up getting scrapped. But we finally got to see a glimpse of what that would have looked like, and it was hilarious. While the cameos we got were cool, it was a missed opportunity to not have Grant Gustin's Flash have a cameo. Like, if anyone deserved to have a cameo, it was him. Like, come on, he's been playing the Flash for like a decade. The least you could have done was given him a cameo. It could have been like what they did with the TV show, where Grant Gustin's Flash met his evil Ezra Miller's Flash. It would have made more sense too, because this is a Flash movie, so it would have made more sense to have more Flash cameos. This feels like a good transition to talk about what I didn't like about the movie. One of the problems with The Flash is the CGI. The director said that the CGI is supposed to look weird on purpose because we're looking at the perspective of the Flash and the Speed Force like messes up reality or something. And I personally think he's telling the truth, but like even some scenes that aren't from the Flash's perspective still look a little weird. Like some of the Ben Affleck Batman scenes and those CGI babies. It doesn't ruin the movie at all, you just think with all the delays the CGI would look a little better. But I guess we're lucky we even got the movie with all the behind the scenes drama and stuff. Also another thing that I guess wasn't really bad, more like disappointing, was the main villain. Now when I say main villain, I'm talking about the Dark Flash. It's kinda unclear who the villain is because Zod has more screen time and he does more stuff, but he doesn't really add anything to the story aside from just being another threat for the heroes to face. But the Dark Flash is barely in the film, and when he does finally show up, he gets defeated in like 5 minutes. I personally feel like it would have been better if they just removed Zod and Dark Flash and just had Reverse Flash as the villain. Or at least give more screen time to the Dark Flash. But then I guess the alternate universe Flash is the Dark Flash, so technically he did have a lot of screen time. Also, they killed off Michael Keaton's Batman, which was just like the stupidest decision in cinematic history. But apparently killing him once wasn't good enough because they brought him back to life and then killed him again. But I think that's all the complaints I have with the movie. I guess it not being accurate to the Flashpoint paradox does make it a little disappointing, but like the movie isn't bad, it just would have been better if it was more accurate. Okay, now let's talk about the stuff I did like. One of the trends this movie has is that it kind of makes fun of itself, so it's almost self-aware kinda. Like they make fun of Ezra Miller's weird run he does for the Flash, and his annoying personality, and Batman just having everything look like a bat, and Batman's mask being connected to the rest of his costume which stops his neck from moving, which was absolutely hilarious, by the way. And of course, Michael Keaton's Batman was one of my favorite parts of the movie. The other cameos were fun, but like, come on, it's Michael Keaton. And like I mentioned earlier, that beginning scene with the other DCU characters was amazing. And the overall story was pretty good, like it had some pretty good drama and emotion to it. So overall, The Flash is a great movie, and definitely one of the better DC movies we've gotten in recent years. It may not have been very accurate to the Flashpoint comic, but it's still pretty good. It definitely could have been a lot better, but it also could have been a whole lot worse. I don't know what James Gunn's new DCU is gonna look like, but if it looks like this, I wouldn't mind. So I give The Flash a solid 8 out of 10. But anyways, that's it for today's video. Thank y'all so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.